The biggest fear that I hear from military families looking to buy their first home, it's whether or not they can even qualify. And according to VA.gov, there are really only three things that lenders look at, and one of them might actually surprise you. Here's a question that I got just this last week, so see if it sounds familiar. Weldon, we're active duty Army and we're stationed at the Pentagon. We want to use our VA loan to buy our first home. We heard it's zero down, which sounds amazing, but we're honestly nervous about whether we'll even qualify. My credit's okay, not perfect, and we're not sure if my BAH counts as income. What do we actually need to get pre approved? Fantastic questions. When you ask the questions, you get better information to make better choices in your life. So, what I heard right there, credit's okay, not perfect, not sure if BAH counts. Does this sound like you perhaps? Maybe if you're a veteran, does your disability pay count? These are all valid and fantastic questions. Here's the good news though. Getting pre-approved for a VA loan, it's actually more straightforward than most people think. Now, I'm not a lender, that's why I'm pulling this information straight from va.gov. I'm on the real estate side, but I've helped hundreds of military families navigate this process. And today, I'm going to break down exactly what va.gov says you need, and then what documents that means, what you need to gather, and the one thing that you should do before you even think about looking at houses. And by the end of this video, you're going to know exactly what to do to prepare so that way you can walk into that lender meeting with confidence. Now, let's get into it with pillar number one, and that is focusing on income. So, when lenders they look at your income, and this is for a VA loan specifically, they're actually looking at your gross income, and that's before taxes. But here's where it gets good for military families. Your BAH, it counts. Your BAS counts. And because those allowances are tax free, lenders actually gross them up by 25% when calculating your qualifying income. That means if you're getting 2000 a month in BAH, the lender might count it as 2500. That's a significant boost to your purchasing power that most VA first-time buyers, they don't even realize that they have. Now, if you're married, you can include your spouse's income too, and that's household income. Dual military, even better. The key is making sure that you can consistently document everything. One thing that I do hear a lot, do I need 2 years at the same job? Well, not exactly. So, according to the VA guidelines, you need 2 years of employment history, but that doesn't mean the same location. So, if you've PCS twice in 2 years, which is not totally uncommon in the military, you're actually fine as long as you've been employed and can show consistent income pattern, which your LES would do that. And in this case, the military itself, again, it counts as your employer, your LES, your pay stub, it's all right there. That's actually simpler than what civilian buyers, what they have to deal with. Now, before we get into credit and cash, I want to encourage you, go to start.askweldonhobbs.com. It's in the caption below. And what you're going to see there, it's two buttons. One is going to be a class for understanding VA loans in depth, the timing, and then what your numbers are. It'll also have a link to a VA loan calculator. And then secondly, maybe you don't need that. You already know it. I can connect you with a values aligned agent anywhere in the country. Just put in your request there, and I will make sure the two of you connect. Somebody that's trained and knows exactly what you're looking for. Okay, now pillar number two. This is credit. This is where I see a lot of military families, they get nervous for no reason whatsoever, because here's exactly what va.gov says. The VA itself, it does not have a minimum credit score requirement for a VA loan. Let me say that again. The VA, the government, does not set a minimum credit score. Individual lenders, they're the ones that set the credit score. So most VA lenders, they want to see at least a 620. Now, some, they'll go as low as 580, but those are lender overlays, not VA requirements. Why does this matter? Well, it's because if one lender says no, another lender, they might say yes. So VA loans, they have something called compensating factors. Things like cash reserves, low debt to income ratio, or a history of on-time rent payments. And all of those things can offset a lower credit score. You get more flexibility with a VA loan. Now, here's the thing about credit scores. Don't trust Credit Karma for this. They use a score called Vantage Score, and mortgage lenders, they typically use FICO. Now, there was a recent ruling where uh, VantageScore came out and said, hey, the VA will allow us to use or allows folks to use VantageScore. However, most lenders, they did not change their standards. So just know that there's a point of ambiguity there as far as what score would be used. Those scores, they can be 20, 30, 40 points different. So if you're serious about buying, my recommendation is check your FICO score through MyFICO or directly through Experian, Equifax, or TransUnion. Great sources. Go to the source of truth for that information. Now, I had a family that I was working with earlier this year, and they almost didn't pursue a home because they had pulled their credit from Credit Karma and they saw some things that were concerning to them. And they said, well, then I don't even want to try. I said, well, time out. Why don't you actually go to a lender? And I gave them a person to talk to. And what they found was yes, there were a few things on the credit score sheet that needed to be addressed, but the lender gave them a clear roadmap of how to do that. And then 4 months later, they had addressed it. And guess what? They bought their home in Washington. Good for them. So that's what happens when you start early and you have the right people in your corner. You set yourself up for success. Now, before I get to the cash piece, and this is where VA loans they really shine, I need you to pay attention here. What I'm about to share is actually the biggest advantage military buyers have over civilians. And most people, they don't fully understand how powerful it really is. Pillar number 3, it's cash. Here's where the VA loan becomes the most powerful home buying tool all across America. And it's because zero down payment required. So while conventional buyers, they need 3 to 5% down, and then FHA buyers, they need 3.5% down. You, as someone who has served in uniform, you can buy with zero down. And so on a $400,000 home, let's use this as an example. That's $12 to $20,000 that you don't have to bring to the table. But, and this is important, zero down doesn't mean zero cash. You'll still have closing costs, and typically that's 2 to 3% of the purchase price. So on that same $400,000 home, that's $8 to $12,000. Now here is a VA specific advantage. The sellers, they can pay for up to 4% of the purchase price towards your closing costs. That's called a seller concession. So if you negotiate that into your offer, you might actually get into the home with very little out of pocket costs. There's also the VA funding fee. So for first time VA loan users with zero down, that's 2.15% of the loan amount. So on a $400,000 home, that's about $8,600. But here's the thing that most people don't know. If you have a service connected disability rating of 10% or higher, the funding fee, it's actually waived entirely. That's $8,600 back in your pocket or never out of it in the first place. As for where your cash can come from, so checking accounts, saving accounts, TSP, stocks, bonds, even gift funds from family. And there's a big one. Over the next 2 decades, it's about 84 trillion trickling down from older generations to younger generations. But the key is that it all has to be documented and seasoned, meaning it's been in your account for at least 60 days. So talk to your lender ahead of time if that's what your plan is. There are workarounds for that too. But they're the ones that are going to know. All right. So you know your income qualifies, your credit is in range, and you understand the cash picture. What documents do you actually need? Well, this is pillar 4, and this is called the documents. It's for active duty. You're going to need at least your last 2 LES statements, and that's going to be your leave and earning statements, of course. So you'll need 2 months of bank account statements showing your assets, and then you're going to need a photo ID. The big one for VA loans, though, that's your certificate of eligibility, your COE. This is what proves to the lender that you've earned the VA loan benefit. The good news, though, is that your lender can usually pull this for you electronically. It takes about 30 seconds for them to do. If you're a veteran, meaning you've separated, you're going to also need your DD 214. That's your discharge paperwork, what they gave you on your way out. And that's going to show you your service dates as well as your discharge status. And if you have a VA disability rating and you want to waive that funding fee, you're going to need your disability documentation showing your rating percentage. That's it. Gather those documents and you're ready for that pre approval conversation. A quick question. Where are you in your home buying journey? Is it you're just starting to think about it? Actively looking? Drop a comment. Let me know. I read every single one of them. I'll respond to it. And here's the most important piece of advice that I can give you. And this comes directly from the lenders that I work with, but also myself based on my experience. You need to get pre approved before you start looking at houses. I know it's tempting just to jump on Zillow and start browsing, but here's what happens whenever you do that. You're going to fall in love with that house and you might not even be able to afford it. Or you're going to find out, worse yet, there's something on your credit score or on your credit report that takes 3 to 6 months to actually get fixed right when you're ready to make an offer. So meet with the lender early, even if you're not buying for another 6 months. They'll pull your credit, identify anything that needs attention, and give you the roadmap. That's how you avoid surprises. If this was helpful, hit that save button, subscribe to the channel, come back to it when you're ready to start the process. If nothing else, go to the link below, start.askweldonhobbs.com, take that class. You can ask me any questions you want, and I will respond via email and let you know exactly who I would connect you with. I mentioned that free VA loan calculator, it's there as well. Get the information you need to make good home buying decisions. And here's the thing, the real estate piece matters, but it usually works better when it's not the first thing that you figure out. Friends, I'm a fellow veteran, a PCS 10 times over. And if you found this video valuable, here's the deal. I've got a free VA loan calculator. It's at askweldonhobbs.com. You're going to see the link in the caption below. Plug in your numbers, see exactly where you're at, what your payment would actually be, what you qualify for. These are real numbers that you can use and manipulate. They don't have to be guesses. I also put together a PCS guide. It has money saving and move planning tips that, again, you're not going to get from TMO or Gypso. If you want to go deeper, if you want someone who actually understands military transitions to help you see the entire picture, there's an option to book a free 30-minute strategy call. We spent 20 plus years in the military, PCS 10 times over. We understand what you're dealing with. I have a tailored group of real estate professionals across America who also understand what is going on in your life. They have the military experience, they've lived it. And when you get to your new duty station and if you need someone who understands that BAH, the VA loans, military timelines, I connect you with them, someone I trust. Because good decisions, they start with good information. Again, if you want to book time, links in the calendar below, so is the calculator. I'm Weldon Hobbs, Air Force Academy graduate right here in Colorado Springs. I'm a transition strategist, real estate professional, and I have helped hundreds of military families navigate these exact scenarios, and they come out successful on the other side. Good decisions start with good information, and I'll see you in the next one.